More and more blockchains are popping up, and this is creating fragmentation in many ways, one of which is liquidity fragmentation. As more blockchain networks emerge, sourcing and supplying liquidity is becoming increasingly complex and costly. Today we're chatting to Meina from the project Native, which has facilitated almost $3 billion in transaction volume thus far. Native thinks that the solution to this issue is a mesh of cross-chain liquidity sources, which they refer to as Web3's liquidity layer. Meina says this system enables significantly higher capital efficiency, higher yields for liquidity providers, and better prices for users trying to route or trade any asset across any chain. Let's hear about it more in the episode. All right, everyone, thank you for tuning into the Teach Me DeFi podcast again. Today, we got a few interesting topics to talk about, which will be about liquidity, decentralized exchanges, unified liquidity, and all sorts of things in that realm. Today, we got Meina with us here from Native. Hi, thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone. This is Meina. Very nice to be here, and thank you for the invite, Sophia.
Yeah, happy to have you here. No, it was just a funny story. Well, for everyone that watched the last episode or listened to it, we had Fig on from Squid, and he then mentioned, "Hey, you should have Meina on," and here you are.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Fig again in this interview. Thank you for the introduction. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, lovely, lovely. Well, let's kick it off with just give us a bit of an intro about Native. I know it shall serve as like sort of a Web3's liquidity layer. Just tell us a bit about that, like the vision and like what kind of advantages this is bringing to DeFi ecosystems.
So at Native, we are essentially building DeFi's omni-chain liquidity hub. Through our unified liquidity layer, we want to provide with users the most capital efficient liquidity across all the blockchains and the applications built on top of them. And we are solving mainly two problems. If you think about liquidity in Web3, first of all, you always, first of all, the AMM DEXs, they always introduce inaccurate pricing, meaning users, they are suffering from huge slippage when they are making transactions using AMM. This is big due to the fundamental mechanism of how the pricing is calculated on AMM DEXs. It's derived from a very simple mathematical formula, x times y equals k. So the larger of the transaction the user want to conduct, the larger of the slippage it will be. Right. Second huge problem is the liquidity fragmentation problem across different ecosystems and decentralized applications. And then because of all the liquidity are fragmented across different ecosystems and applications, so users it's usually a very hard problem for users to find the deepest liquidity, the best pricing across all those different applications, and they have to go through or utilize aggregators to achieve that. But usually, even when you are using aggregators, they are not necessarily providing you with the best liquidity.
Okay.
And
Okay.
those are the two core and those are the two core problems that we are solving at Native. And we are solving that by three product features or product lines.
Okay.
Do you want me to get into each of them, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem you're mentioning is really interesting, and a problem that anyone who kind of has used crypto a bit knows, right? Like this big fragmentation across chains. Like even if you would find deep enough liquidity somewhere, you would have to, I don't know, bridge your coins there and use DEX XYZ and whatever. So it's a big pain in the ass, so to say. So yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah, dive into it more. If you can tell me how you guys are addressing this, that would be really interesting. Yeah.
I think it might just make sense to talk through the whole three
Hmm.
products. And it actually is because of the market demands or what we have found from the user journey. That's why we build the three different products consequently, and they actually contribute to the flywheel altogether to the unified liquidity source. So at first, the first problem we tried to tackle was the pricing inaccuraciness, because AMM DEXs is simplified mechanism. We decided to build an in-app DEX infrastructure through like an RFQ routing system. So on the front end, we will aggregate all those different order flows from aggregators, solvers, or any projects who will be utilizing our API to find the best liquidity. So those projects, such as leading aggregators such as 1inch, OpenOcean, all those, they will just call our API directly whenever their users send them a transaction swap request. And on the back end, literally what we do is to aggregate the liquidity sources from both AMM and PMMs. AMM shortens for automated market maker, PMM shortens for professional market makers. And really what we are really, really good at is to provide professional market making pricing models. But we source all those pricing off-chain, meaning all those leading market makers, they will streamline their off-chain order book. But then after compare all the different pricing menus, we find the best quote and we send it back to the users. Once the user confirm, we will settle all the transaction on-chain. That's like the first phase of the product, right? We want to make the aggregated liquidity sources through the RFQ routing system very, very easily accessible to the different partners who want to utilize the liquidity sources. And this does solve the pricing inaccuracy problem, because whenever a PMM pricing is utilized, there's no slippage involved. User get exactly what they are quoted for. And literally it's because there's not any on-chain state can impact the price code that's provided by the market makers. So that's why you get exactly what you are quoted for, right? But over the time, as I realized, okay, native, we are serving almost as a middle layer between the supply of the liquidity and the demand of the liquidity, right? The demand is the user side, and the supply are the market makers pricing or all those like AMM DEXs aggregated together. Then what's our mode? I asked myself, right? And then whenever like those whenever those aggregators or solvers, when they call your API liquidity sources, they are very, very sensitive. Like I was trying to like add a little bit fee on top of that, but I think the overall transaction volume will drop significantly whenever I make that fine tune. So I say, okay, maybe I think it's time for us to form our own order flow, meaning it will be important to have the users directly coming to our website to utilize the liquidity sources. Because first of all, then the users will have the brand concept. Okay, native is providing the best liquidity, right? Second is you wouldn't be dependent on third parties in the long run, because for any third parties, when they are calling your API, for some of the vendors, if they are in the growth space, maybe they wouldn't implement an additional fee charge. But for those long-standing leading aggregators such as 1inch, they will incorporate a fee called dynamic pricing fee. So on top of the quote that you are providing to them, they actually dynamically add a fee on top of that. So users aren't necessarily enjoying the direct best quote that you are providing to them. And that's why.
Sorry, can I dive? So you mean basically the aggregator, you lose your pricing power, the aggregator can add the fee on top, and you are perceived by the aggregate price in the end, and you sort of lose a bit of power there with the customer, is it? Or with the user?
Correct. Meaning, even though we are already providing a very competitive pricing, but when it goes to the users, it's already a little bit worse than what you provided. And then of course, I mean, it's fair if whoever is calling your API, they get the most users traffic coming to their
Yeah.
website. But then it will be better for you to build yourself.
Yeah.
So then last year around August, we also released our own DAX aggregator called DataX, and essentially the goal is okay for users to enjoy directly the
Yeah.
super competitive pricing that's provided from
And
our end.
okay.
And
And you have a
that's
direct
uh,
channel to the users instead of yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
yes. And then I think so far every day we have around 50K users directly coming to the website every day to swap.
Okay. Well.
So things has been growing nicely.
Lovely.
And then but then as I mentioned, right, most of the leading aggregators, the top 5 solvers on CowSwap, the top 5 solvers on 1inch Fusion, they are all using us as part of their liquidity sources or their small order routing system. That will be approximately 70% to 80% of the overall DeFi order flow. But but at that time daily, I was seeing around like 5 million to 15 million settled by the overall native trading system. It's not, I mean, it's a good traction for a newer project, but compare us to Uniswap, it's still a very small portion to the overall DeFi ecosystem. And and then I start to question why, right? We already almost like kind of aggregated most of the liquidity sources. And when I check all the on-chain data as well as like what the users are requesting, right? Most of the transactions with a larger amount, meaning let's say when the user want to swap more than 300K worth of token or 500K worth or 1 million, it always route to Uniswap instead of our like PMM providers. And this is really because even though market makers, they are able to provide PMM pricing with accuraciness, but their own pricing capability is still limited by their own on-chain inventory, meaning like they can price the the different token pairs accurately, but if they don't have enough inventory for that specific token pair on chain, then they wouldn't be able to settle it, right? Suppose a user they want to swap 1 million worth of Doge to Ethereum, then if the market maker doesn't have 1 million Ethereum, then the transaction simply cannot be settled. Maybe this is a bad example because most of market makers, they will hold enough majors or stables. But let's say if you the market maker is doing pricing on a newer layer 2 or on a newer like mid cap token, then it's almost like impossible for them to hold the assets for every single pair of that. So in order to solve that, we released the third product, which is named Agua, and soon it will be branded under the overall native brand called Native Lending and Borrowing. So essentially, we created this Lending and Borrowing 2.0, where we enable the retail liquidity providers to provide inventory for professional market makers to do on-chain credit-based trading. So through our credit-based trading system, market makers will be able to get chain agnostic, asset agnostic credit so that when they settle all the transactions on-chain, they will get leverage. And because their cost of capital is lower through our credit-based trading system, they will be able to generate more revenue using the same amount of collateral, and thus the with the financing fee that they are paying through the credit-based trading system, we contribute it back to the liquidity providers. So liquidity providers will also enjoy a much more higher and real and sustainable yield from the credit-based trading system.
Okay, wait. Let's slow down there.
I
That's
know.
that was I could follow. I think 90%, but towards the end, you lost me. So let's break that up a bit. Um, so basically, you said you noticed that the bigger trades are not being routed to you guys, but to Uniswap, and that was because they were so large sometimes that your your private market, was it private market makers? Or how did you call them? Your
You
market
can call
makers?
them private, yeah,
Yeah,
professional private, yeah.
professional. Yeah,
It's
your
yep.
yeah. So your professional market makers sometimes couldn't fill those orders because they were too large. Did I understand it correctly?
Yes. I mean
Mm-hmm.
the pricing, their pricing is just like how they derive the pricing for that tokens, right? It could be their own based on their own market making book, as well as like the liquidity
Mm-hmm.
depths and the volatility for those certain token pairs, right? It's just like data they will be sending. But
Yeah.
let's say essentially when it comes to the transaction settlement, right? For the model before we launch our lending and borrowing protocol, it will always be
Yeah.
like the user and the market maker's wallet, they need to exchange the assets, right? Suppose
Mm-hmm.
the user want to swap from Doge to Ethereum, then user send Doge to the market maker, and market maker send the other leg, which is Ethereum, to the users. So
Mm-hmm.
that will place a requirement of the market maker to have enough Ethereum at that time to
Mm-hmm.
complete that transaction.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so in order to solve that, you are now offering the option for users, for retail, to lend to those market makers, so they have deeper liquidity to fill those orders. That's how I understood it. Is that correct?
Correct. We call it peer to PMM liquidity provisioning.
Okay.
So for a traditional lending and borrowing protocol, right? Let's say Compound Aave, it's usually retail users, they will supply a certain amount of tokens, right? Different tokens into the pool. But then it's also the retail users who will be using whatever they supply as collateral, right? And then they do
Mm-hmm.
an over collateralized lending, over collateralized borrowing, meaning against their collateral, they will borrow back some majors or stables, right? Depends on what they need. That's
Mm.
that's the full product, right? And then the capital utilization for those lending and borrowing maximum will be 100%. But because of
Mm-hmm.
the maximum loan to value ratio, it usually the max LTV for different tokens will be around 50% to 80%. So that also caps your maximum capital utilization rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but for us, yes, the new product we created is a lending and borrowing product, but it's more than that because, as you said, it's not only the retail users are using the assets inside, are
Mm-hmm.
borrowing them. More importantly, is we are allowing the professional market makers to do the borrowing against the pool. But it's not necessarily the market makers are moving assets or taking the assets out somewhere to conduct the borrowing. It's more we're allowing them to settle all those different transactions on credit. And so that means
Mm.
we are using the credit that we're recording to replace the actual token transfer between the the lending and borrowing
Mm.
pool itself and the market maker. It's actually whenever a transaction happens, the token transfer will be purely happening between the user and the aggregated pool itself. But later, because we have already tracked how the market makers have been utilizing the credit, right, to settle different transactions, so market maker can come back at a later time and settle all those their net positions altogether. So they have the flexibility.
Mm. Okay. I think yeah, that technical part would take a little more of a reading for me to get really understand. But
Yep.
basically, you're saying that could be achieved a more efficient capital utilization rate here than if you would be using Aave or whatever. And this is
Mm,
coupled with the fact of how this is done with market makers, right?
correct. Yeah,
Mm.
correct. This is because of our credit-based trading system, and I
Mm-hmm.
just like maybe if technical is a bit harder, just to give you some numbers, right, or
Mm-hmm.
perspective.
Yeah.
Uh, there are many ways to calculate capital utilization or capital efficiency, but if we just want to adopt the most fundamental way to calculate it, it will be the overall daily volume divided by the TVL. So capital efficiency of Uniswap, the original AMM, usually is around 10 to 15%. Because Uniswap V2, I think the overall TBL is 2 to 3 billion, and daily it's 200 to 300 million powered. And then Uniswap V3, which allows for concentrated liquidity, brings around to the overall capital utilization rate of like 40%. But for the newer model that I mentioned, right, the PMM plus the credit-based trading system that we enable through native, we just did a full month of testing on ZK-Link, and daily the overall capital utilization rate is around 300% to 400%.
What were the percentages with the other ones again? Sorry.
The other ones is 10% or 40%. Yeah.
Okay, that's a big difference.
So it's yes, it's a boosting of 7 to 8 times. So that's why I always claim PMM pricing is 7 to 8 times more efficient than AMM pricing, and this is all based on historical data.
Hey there, just a quick message. If you're watching this and you're enjoying it, please make sure to tell a friend that might also like it, because we don't run any ads on this podcast and that helps us out a lot to keep doing this. Thank you. And where are you at in that roadmap at the moment? How much of this is implemented? What's coming next?
So as I mentioned, we just finished the testing on ZK-Link, and now we are in the process of deploying onto Arbitrum, Mantle, and then essentially Ethereum mainnet. So once we deploy on Arbitrum, Ethereum, and Mantle, then the users will be able to see the capital efficiency that they will be get in real time action. And then I think like correspondingly, they can still do the very simple comparison, which is the overall volume powered divided by the TVL, right? And to see what's the actual capital efficiency. Yep.
So this is, from what I can tell, this is a key metric you're tracking, daily volume divided by the TVL.
Yeah, correct. Because essentially this just shows the average capital utilization, right? It's a very fair, even though like brutal force metrics that you will be using.
Okay. How come did you start on ZK-Link, or like how come you're deployed there? Is there a story, or yeah?
Oh, for the reason why we started on ZK-Link is I think 2 reasons. First of all, it's really I think ZK-Link is the whole ecosystem. They are very supportive in terms of like marketing, in terms of incentivizing users to try out their new layer 3. They call themselves layer 3 concept, right?
Okay.
And I think like the way they think about their future of the product is very, very aligned. Essentially, they want to provide the users a unified experience in terms of liquidity. And they are doing that on the chain aggregation level, while we are doing that through our product design level, or through the supply and demand mechanism that I just mentioned to you, right? So that's why we decided to give it a shot. And during the last months, we have been pushing out with several large wallet partners, such as Binance Web3 wallet or OKX wallet, to do large campaigns to incentivize retail users to come, not only to supply assets into native, but also to trade directly. And that's the reason why the testing phase of the results has been fairly successful based on our internal data.
Cool. And just so users then know what this could look like. So can you swap from what chains do you support at the moment, from where you can kind of swap? Yeah, basically that's the question. So
for NativeX or the overall trading, right now we are live on across 10 chains, right?
Okay.
Ethereum, BNB, Arbitrum, Polygon, Mantle, Manta, Zeta Chain, Linea. You guys can
Mm.
go directly to native.org to check that out. And for the newer lending and borrowing mechanism, or we call peer-to-PMM, liquidity provisioning mechanism, this is currently only live on zk-Link right now, but soon it will be live on Arbitrum, Mantle, and Ethereum by the end of this month.
Okay, okay. And in those
Mhm.
cases, um, you could provide liquidity on those chains, and uh, and also initiate a swap with an asset on those chains, or
Mm. So the core difference is right now, if you swap on the chains that our lending and borrowing is not supporting, then essentially the liquidity you're using or the inventory that you're using is either from the market maker or from the AMM
Mhm.
sources that we have integrated, right? But when we enable the lending and borrowing on the newer chains, then that means most of the time the the inventory that you are interacting with will be coming from the peer-to-PMM lending and borrowing protocol.
Right, right. Just like in terms of principles, how do you like feel about, because like AMMs came about so that you don't have a centralized player there or whatever, like the traditional market maker concept. Now you are kind of developing like a hybrid, I guess. You have like both things. Um,
Mm.
do you feel strongly about this in terms of, is this, could this be seen, or maybe someone would say this could be seen as going to the wrong direction? How would you respond to that?
Um, I think we are definitely innovative and new, and uh, I don't know how people judge about whether this is wrong or right, but
Mm.
if anyone is familiar with traditional finance, the mental model or the mechanism that we are describing here simply is very similar to a prime brokerage model. So essentially, we are providing like prime brokerage services for the professional market makers. And then if you want even to use a simpler mental model in this, in Web2, right, we said Uber, they connect the users to the drivers. So they
Mhm.
serve both the supply and demand end, right? Here at Native, I say we serve a three-sided marketplaces because
Mhm.
we serve the liquidity providers, we serve the traders, and the market makers, right? Traders,
Mhm.
what they get is the super competitive pricing and the deep liquidity for different token pairs. Liquidity
Mhm.
providers is they are receiving real, sustainable, great yields from resulted from the super high capital utilization rate that's generated by the credit-based trading system. And because they are just doing single token lending and borrowing, so they don't even suffer from any impermanent loss comparing to when they supply liquidity in Uniswap B2 or B3, right?
Mhm.
And certainly for the third side, market makers, they are able to generate much more revenue using the same amount of collateral that they are willing to put on chain.
Mhm.
So I do think we are the future. Yeah.
Right.
And you
That's
can
nice.
already see there are many other protocols that are trying to improve the capital efficiency in the
Mhm.
DeFi space.
Okay. I'll get back to that. And do you see yourself somewhat competing with centralized exchanges as well? Because, for example, why, like the notion of why should a market maker be active on native instead of being on, I don't know, like Binance or whatever? Is
Mm,
there a competition dynamic now as well?
I think if you are in DeFi, you are somewhat always competing with each other, no matter you are in the
Mhm.
trading or lending and borrowing, right? Because there are only limited amount of actions you can do: trading, lending, borrowing, staking. What else, right?
Right.
So but it really depends on from what angle you are competing, right? From yeah, I think in the internal vision of native, what we want to do is we also want to capture more of the users from the central exchange. Because essentially, think of the credit system. We basically just move the centralized exchange accounting system on chain, right?
Mm-hmm.
How the way how we are enabling the leverage trading for the market makers. And then in the long run, right now, we are only enabling the credit-based trading for the professional market makers, but it has always been in our vision and our product plan that we will be enabling the same credit-based trading for the retail users. What it will mean for them is similarly, the retail users will be deposit a certain amount of collateral, let's say USDC, Ethereum, right? And with that amount of collateral, they will be able to hold different long and short positions against the asset pool that we have, so that like they don't they will be able to uh, have exposure to different assets, but they don't necessarily need to be always like over collateralized in that way. So they, as long as they keep their net position against the pool over collateralized, then they can continue to make more transactions and holding different assets.
So the
So
aggregate net position has to be over collateralized, but not per like asset.
yes, you get the hang. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yep. So so in that way, like I think that means like the users, they never need to go to another like DEX aggregator, because they will always be like holding their positions inside the pool, and that's how we wanted to be competing with central exchange, but essentially we will always be a DeFi protocol, meaning the users will having the custody of the assets by themselves, right? They own their own keys, and then all it's just all the credit or all their net positions are tracked on chain. So so users don't need to worry about that perspective. Instead of right now, kind of like central exchange, they can change their database if they wanted to, and it's not necessarily written on chain. Your data or your holdings is just living in their own centralized database. That's it.
Yeah. That's the thing that Sam Bankman-Fried liked, though.
Yes, and now he is facing what 20 years of jail. Yeah,
Yeah, didn't
yeah,
work
because
out.
he didn't have the accounting book on chain, or he didn't have any. Yeah, basically his accounting system is messed up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, keep your coins off the exchange, hey? Or off the centralized exchange. Good
Yeah.
advice. Right. Do you want to give us a little showcase and show us something?
So, okay, now I will show you how native.org works, how our three product works. So here you can see this is actually a baby version of an ongoing native.org website revamping. By the time this podcast is released, the full production version should be already live. So for this video, let's just focus on the functional part of the product instead of the aesthetic part. When a retail user coming to native website, two things mainly they can do. First is swap any tokens on any chains that they preferred. Second is to do peer-to-PMM liquidity provisioning, that where they can actually supply and borrow into our liquidity pools. Let's go to the swapping widget first. Like any DEX aggregator, they can choose their favorite chains, and after they input the amount they want to swap, they will get a confirmed quote. So let's just quickly do a small swap on zk-Link Nova. You enter the amount that you want to swap, and then you confirm quote. You sign your message for the fee, and after a while, you will receive a message says transaction completed. And after your transaction is completed, let's go to our very special lending and borrowing part. So when a user comes here, they will be able to see the assets that are available to supply. They will also see which assets are able to be utilized as a collateral. What's special about us is really the different tiers of the APYs they are receiving, right? The borrow API is similar to any lending and borrowing protocol. When the asset is supplied in the pool, when there's someone borrowing that asset, then the retail user receive the borrow APY. But on the other side, because we're enabling professional market makers to utilize all those assets on credit to settle more transactions. So whenever that asset is utilized, then the users will be able to receive the credit APY from the fees that we are charging from the market makers. And then the third pillar will be the additional rewards APY, which right now is manually distributed every week into the pool. So it really depends on our partnership with other ecosystems, or even from the revenue from our other product lines. For example, the swapping widget, we will from time to time boost different assets inside the pool. So really, when users they come to do the supply and borrowing into native, they will be able to receive a lot of amazing rewards. And then if you are interested in becoming a market maker or utilizing our swapping widget, you can click on the native hub under B2B section. If you are curious about our analytics, or where our volume is coming from, then you can click directly on the analytics and it will direct you to our analytics page where you will be able to see the volume, transactions, and records, everything. Yep, that's all for our product.
What's next? You gave us a bit of a peek into that in terms of the lending and borrowing part that you intend to launch and things like that. Are there any other upcoming developments, plans you have that you're excited about, that you want to share? Features, anything like that? Partners?
So deploying our credit-based trading system for the market making onto more chains is definitely going to be our number one priority for the next 2 to 3 months, right? Notably, Arbitron, Mental, and Ethereum in the coming weeks. We actually have received large grants from Arbitron and Mental that will help us to kick off the flywheel of liquidity on those chains by attracting liquidity providers as well as by incentivizing the users to trade on NativeX. But and then we actually have already a very very good lineup ecosystems who have also confirmed the grants and want to attract us onto them, because I do think after I explain the mental model as well as how technically the credit-based trading system works from native, everybody will think, oh, this is really something new that we haven't seen before, and please come to our chain, and we believe we can make a difference. So I do believe like the more chains we are able to tackle, the better the flywheel will become, because that's our essential proposal, right? We want to be the most capital efficient liquidity on every single chain. In the longer term, I also briefly mentioned for some of your previous questions is that we are also going to enable the cross-chain lending and borrowing for retail users. So that means like the users will get to lend and borrow of those assets across different chains, but also in the longer term, they will be able to do credit-based trading. So this is a longer vision, like longer horizon, probably within like 1 to 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Just wondering, lending and borrowing across many chains. Because do you know Prime Protocol? We had them on the show, and I believe that was what they were doing.
Prime Protocol. I haven't heard of
Right.
them, but I know a lot of actually a lot of the new or protocols or blue chip protocols. For example, Aave before they just mentioned they will do cross chain lending and borrowing.
Okay.
Because essentially, based on my understanding, what they're enabling is like you will use the assets across different chains as collateral. So you can, let's say, use Ethereum on ETH to borrow against ARB on ARB, something like that. Yeah, but what we provide will be much more. It's the credit part.
Right. Makes the capital utilization even better then, was it?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So does that, just to double click on that, does that also mean then that you'd get better yields technically? That's the idea, or?
Yes, and the yields is not just simply generated from points. It's generated from the financing fee that we will be collecting from the market makers.
Cool. Well, that's okay. Will be interesting to see how the liquidity will move around, because technically, if that's the case, there should be liquidity moving towards where better yields are.
Yeah, I think several days I also tweet that that in financial markets those principles always holds true, right? Uh, First of all, is the markets will always march towards efficiency, and second is liquidity will always flow to the highest yield.
Cool. Right. I mean, we're 50 minutes in. I think that was super interesting insight into what you guys are building, even though I couldn't keep up at times. Apologies, Meina. Did my best. But
No worries. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I should have kept some of the answers a little bit more high level. But I'm glad like we get to dig into some of the more technical perspective of the product.
Oh, right. Yeah, no worries. No, was really lovely. And are there any last words? Anything you would like to share in terms of people who want to start using native or get involved in any other way with the community, things like that?
I think simply just come try our product out, right? No matter you are a trader, you are a liquidity provider, or you are a professional market maker. I think as long as you are part of the native ecosystem, you are utilizing our product, then you will be able to capture the financial opportunity that's generated from the market inefficiency. Because I always believe liquidity is a network structure instead of a linear structure, meaning that even though we know liquidity, you follow a structure from the order flow to the essential, which liquidity you use or which of the liquidity sources that you use, right? But it's all interconnected. So the role of market makers, solvers, or liquid providers are all kind of blurred over the long term. So as long as you are connected or utilizing native trading infrastructure, I think you are in good hands.
Love it.
Sorry, I know you are waiting for me to say something technical
No.
at the end, but I'm just like showing. But it's true. I think how should I describe it? It's like how do you capture most of the market inefficiency, right? When you are in a financial markets, it's definitely when you are connecting to all different liquidity sources as well as all different order flow sources, and you being as a core center of that network structure, then you will be able to capture it. It's a connection, it's the information you are getting.
Sweet. No, I like the formulation. You're in good hands. That's a good way to to wrap this up. You heard it, and yeah, we'll put all the links in the show notes. Thank you, Meina, for coming on the show. Anytime again, it was a delight.
Yeah, thank you for the invite, Sokyo.